Er waart weer een spook door Europa. Een spook met twee gezichten. Want de problemen van de multiculturele samenleving en het oprukkend populisme houden elkaar in een beklemmende greep. Inmiddels hebben onbegrip, uitsluiting en intolerantie de sprong gemaakt van de straat naar diverse Europese regeer- en gedoogakkoorden. Wie houdt nu nog het hoofd koel? Tegenlicht gaat op zoek naar een nieuw perspectief. En volgt de even opmerkelijke als controversiële moslimprediker Sheikh Khalid Yasin op zijn tournee door Europa.
When I'm traveling outside the United States, occasionally they may stop me on my way out. If it's an international flight. But for sure, when I go back, because I'm on a list, so they'll stop me and they'll go through the 31, 32 questions.
They come into the United States.
Yes. Yeah. And this time, this was the first time that the British Metropolitan Police, and I believe one of the people that was there was Scotland Yard also, that they stopped me, questioned me, wanted to understand what am I coming here for. The British, they're able to mask their arrogance and use their historical savvy in dealing with Muslims. They're more cordial. They don't make you feel, even when they arrest you, they don't make you feel arrested. They're very courteous, but their mechanisms are basically the same.
Den kontroversielle amerikanske imam Sheikh Khalid Yasin er i Danmark. Her skal han tale til Nørrebros unge i aften for at holde dem væk fra banderne. Mød Yasin her i studiet lige om et øjeblik.
How you guys doing? Seems like somebody's set it up real good for us over here.
Respect is wat ik vraag voor de hoofddoek die ik draag. Jullie zijn de onderdrukkers, niet wij. Wie heeft ervoor gekozen?
Baas op eigen hoofd voert actie voor het Koninklijke Atheneum in Antwerpen. Ze dragen absurde hoofddeksels omdat ze ook het hoofddoekenverbod absurd vinden.
You said we have to vote, but a few years ago we did it. But the person on we had voted, they lied to us. They promised a lot of things, but after.
This is correct, sister. Look, don't stop from voting.
No.
If you went to a restaurant and you ate, and something happened and the food was bad, you would not stop eating. Okay? But voting is a moral obligation. That's what I'm telling Muslims. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. It gives us power, influence. But Islamically, it is a moral obligation to select, to nominate somebody.
First of all, I want to thank you because I don't know if you remember, but 7 months ago, here in Antwerp, I was here, and thanks to you, I converted to Islam.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
I really want to thank you for that.
No, thank you so much, sister. No, it's my honor.
It was an honor for me to.
Thank you so much. What's your name, sister?
Hannah, but
Hannah.
Hannah, yes. But I took the Islamic name Sumaya.
Sumaya. Yes. May Allah reward you and preserve you in your faith, sister, inshallah. Thank you so much.
But I would like to ask, I saw DVDs over there.
Yes.
But because I don't have enough money right now.
No, you don't worry about it. You can go take the one you want.
No, I want to give money.
Okay. You take what you want and you give what you want. No problem. Okay. If you take my card is on the other desk. In fact, I'll give you one I have with me. You can use this card to send me an email. I'll send you a copy of all my sites.
De stichting Ontdek Islam organiseert volgende week een lezing met moslimprediker Sheikh Khalid Yasin. Maar de Tweede Kamer maakt zich nu al zorgen over de komst van deze sheik, want die zou er namelijk nogal radicale ideeën op nahouden. Aan de telefoon Madeleine van Torenburg, Tweede Kamerlid van het CDA. Goedenavond.
Goedenavond.
Het CDA heeft vragen gesteld aan het kabinet over de komst van deze sheik.
Ja. Wij hebben liever dat hij niet komt, maar we willen eerst van het kabinet horen of het klopt dat hij oproept tot haat. Dat willen wij gewoon.
Maar dan moet u dat wel eens een beetje snel besluiten, het kabinet, want volgende week vrijdag spreekt hij al.
Precies, nou, we hebben het kabinet ook gevraagd om daar snel op te reageren.
Ja.
Those men and women who were around, who surrounded, who supported, who followed, who listened, who obeyed, who loved, who sacrificed for the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were the strangers. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, this religion, this deen, in the beginning, it came as a stranger.
It's nice to meet you.
How you brothers doing?
How are you?
You all right, Akhi?
My brother watches your CD every day, every morning. He watches your CD.
And it will return again as a stranger. So welcome, glad tidings to the strangers.
May God give you a long life. Long life. Thank you. MashaAllah.
No doubt, Islam carries with it the residual of so many different cultures, the Arab culture, the African culture, the Asian culture. So when Muslims come to Europe, not only is their ideology somewhat strange, but they're carrying with them also strange cultures. So this strange upon strange, the way it impacts upon most Europeans, it immediately looks like it's a bit odd, strange, unusual. But that is so with almost everything that is introduced to people that they haven't seen before.
Til at prædike om de her ting. Han kommer med et klart budskab til noget reelt og seriøst problem, der foregår i Danmark, hvor unge mennesker render rundt og skyder hinanden på gaden. Og det vil vi gerne gøre noget ved, og det var en af metoderne at gøre det på. Der er virkelig mange af de her unge mennesker, der aldrig nogensinde har haft noget med bandemiljøet at gøre, der er begyndt at interessere sig for bandemiljøet. Unge mennesker, der har opført sig pænt, aldrig nogensinde har haft noget med kriminalitet at gøre, de er begyndt at gå ind i banderne, og det er det, vi gerne vil gøre noget ved.
What do you think of homosexuality?
Well, in the sight of God, everyone is equal. But we're not
Men and women?
But we're not the same.
But what about homosexuality?
I don't have an opinion, but I'll give you the position of the principle in Islam, that it is a perversive behavior and it is a criminal behavior. We should be tolerant. We don't have to agree, but we have to tolerate because we're citizens. As I understand it, this here is supposed to be live.
If they don't,
live, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So they're going to make it live when I get there.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's really good. So don't become animals. Don't become criminals. Don't become less than what you are. Check yourself. Look at your life. Look at your mother. Look at your father. Look at your family. Take the time to read the Quran. Thank Allah for the blessings that He has given to you. Thank Allah for where you are. Now, what is more valuable than liberty? Therefore, I say that you young people, you need to be grateful to this country. I don't say you got to agree to everything, but you need to be grateful because you've been given something.
And let's look at the reality. How many Muslims are living from a Western country once they have lived there for a year or two and going back to their countries with a one-way ticket? I would say not even 1%. So again, we have these contradictions. And I'm being honest with you that in my presentations, trying to reform the thinking of Muslims, and so I would just say to Western people that let the fire burn, it'll go out. These young men who are radical or extremist and shouting and reacting, they're going to get older. And as they get older, the fire goes down. Okay, and I think that there's another side, especially in America. I'm witnessing a tremendous amount of young people that are very educated, very moderate, and we don't have any radical mosques in America. We don't have this problem in America. It's a phenomenon of Europe. And I think it's a phenomenon of Europe because the Europeans haven't dealt with it properly. The Americans have allowed or have promoted people to migrate into the society like a melting pot. And you don't find this anger. You don't find this, but you find people who have been in America for a year or two. If you ask them, are you an American? Of course I'm an American. But you find people who have been here in Europe for 3 generations, and they don't want to call themselves Dutch, or they don't want to call themselves British. I think that the society itself, the hosting society, I don't think that they're approaching the problem correctly. 20 minutes, I think. I'm going to be up. We're going to the Delft Technical University. I think that's where we're going. Well, I think that the students here, like many students around the world, especially in the Western civilizations, they're trying to reconcile their ideological values and their academic aspirations, and how they're going to merge the two of those together. Allahu Akbar. Many of these young people are a bit frustrated and despondent to a certain degree, and I'm sort of like the Ghostbuster. It is important for them to understand who they are and the values of their religion or their system of life, but it's more important for them to understand where they are. I'm reminding them this is Holland, and you, your parents, by the way, they're not going back anywhere.
الله أكبر الله عليك ولا تبغ الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين.
As I understand it, our discussion today is about participation in the society. Many of our classical scholars and students of knowledge who have studied with them are of the opinion that it is irreligious for Muslims to participate in a non-Muslim society. Now, not only am I going to demonstrate that that is preposterous, but I'm also going to show that it is an un-Islamic postulate. That is, we must participate in the society. Not doing so, we will be blameworthy in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I would ask, I want to be a little interactive here. I want to ask how many people here can honestly say, as a Muslim living in this country, how many people took the time to extract the Constitution of this country, take it home, and look at those 15, 20, 30, or whatever pages it is, and try to understand the constitutionality and the social political persona of this country in terms of its values, its principles. How many of you can say that you did that? If you don't participate, you will never be empowered. It is as simple as that. If you don't participate, how can you yourself be elected? How can you be appointed? How can you be consulted if you're not participating? I didn't say Muslims should run for office. I don't want anybody here to say that Sheikh Khalid Yasin said that. I didn't say that. If that's your ambition, there is a
There is different fatwa that's been established where a Muslim can run for office in this society or another given society. Well, we should participate in the society to the extent that the society allows us, you see, to plant and to cultivate and to generate the Islamic values inside of that society. We should go as far as we can to do that. Why? Because the society has provided us the privilege and the opportunity to do that. Thank you, brother, so much.
C'est cheese.
Thank you.
I happen to be a Muslim, so the moral values, you see, the moral values that drive my views are Islam. But I'm not a person preaching about Islam, calling people to Islam. That's not my ambition. I was born a Christian, so religion and Jesus Christ in particular was very much part of my life. I was raised in foster homes, so kind of being shifted and farmed out to different Christian families, and having been exposed to the morality of Christianity in its various denominations. When I arrived at the higher part of my adolescence, this was the turbulent 60s. The word Islam was in the news. There was a group of people called the Nation of Islam. On one particular occasion, I was riding the train, I can remember, and there was an article in the New York Times. That article in the New York Times was a letter written by the person better known as Malcolm X about his experience in Mecca.
The will of Allah. By protecting a man who I myself taught them was...
We can see that he has grown a beard. So this must have been around November or December of 1964. And of course, he was assassinated in February of 1965.
Of morality, unity, and militancy. As long as I could do that,
He teaches us to obey the law, to respect law enforcement officers, as long as these law enforcement officers respect themselves. We're nonviolent with people who are nonviolent with us, but we are not nonviolent with anyone who is violent with us.
The Negro, or the African American as I was, it wasn't difficult to relate to this new morality. It's already there in Scripture. It's being articulated now a different way. So for me, the first time I heard Malcolm, I just heard a person who was like fearless and articulate. Not just fearless, but articulate. Entertaining, meaning that he was humorous. Of course, Malcolm is saying that America doesn't want us here because we're the problem. Well, I think maybe Muslims in Europe may be thinking that the Europeans don't want us here, but it's a difference. Those who are feeling that Europe doesn't want them there, they may themselves be quite European, or they may be the second and third generation of immigrants. And so they're feeling rejection from Europe, like African Americans were feeling rejection from America. Rejection for different reasons. But I think, again, Malcolm is being very visionary in that he's starting out by saying that the way to avert clash, convulsion, is to have open dialogue.
Dankjewel. Groetjes thuis. Ja, hetzelfde. Graag. Salut.
These young children of Muslim immigrants in Europe, they're going to the mosque, some of them from their own motivation, others because it's just expected of them. But when they get there, they don't find the voice. They hear people talking classical, whether Arabic or Urdu or some other language, and they're respecting it, but they're not, as the young kid says, I ain't feeling it. I ain't with that. That's the language. Okay, so here you start to see them going a different way. I think that the voice of a person like Malcolm, if you just listen to it and don't look at it, a young Moroccan or Algerian or Somalian or from Ghana or Nigerian or Bosnian or whatever young Muslim, whether in America or in Europe, they can relate almost immediately to that message. I think the main reason is that these young people were looking for something to liberate them, to give them a new identity.
We zijn nu in Hoboken. Wat is er aan de hand? Er is een hoofddoekenverbod ingediend. Het is begonnen bij beide scholen. Dus dat is een van Hoboken en dat is een van Antwerpen. Maar nu heeft de Raad van het Gemeenschapsonderwijs beslist dat het over heel Vlaanderen zal zijn. Er zouden zogezegd moslimmeisjes zijn, dus hoofddoekdragende meisjes, die andere meisjes, dus niet hoofddoekdragende meisjes, onder druk zouden zetten om die hoofddoek wel te dragen. Het is natuurlijk religie, hè. Het heeft met mijn geloof te maken, maar zodra dat je overtuigd bent dat dat voor je goed is en dat je je daar goed bij voelt, dan zie je dat ook niet meer als een verplichting. En dat is waar de meeste mensen zich de fout maken van het is een verplichting, dus je bent sowieso onder druk gezet. Nee, van zodra je die overtuiging hebt, zie je dat gewoon als een richtlijn. En als je die volgt, je voelt je er goed bij, waarom dan niet?
As I understand it, we are here today to discuss the banning of the hijab in the public schools of Belgium. And so we need to discuss the background, we need to discuss the environment, we need to discuss the definition of the hijab itself, because we cannot be certain that all Muslims understand what is the hijab. If a Muslim woman hasn't read the Quran, she has not read the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, she's just wearing the hijab because her father said, her grandfather said, it's just the people, her town, her village, her country, she's just wearing it in spite of whatever. She ain't questioned why. In her heart, no connection to Allah. She ain't doing it from her own choice. She feel like she's being compelled to do that. That's called the cultural hijab. But that has nothing to do with Islam. That has to do with ignorant people who gave her that thinking, and that unfortunate ignorant sister who's thinking like that. Now, they also say that hijab is a political statement. You know, as if a woman wearing a scarf on her head, somehow or another, it turns into some kind of political statement, like, I am Muslim, check me out. We want to establish the Islamic State. You know, we not with the Kafirs, we not in obedience. You know, we this or we are. Check us out, we are extremists. Check us out, we are fanatics. Check us out, we are with Qaeda. Check us out, we with Taliban. You know, like as if a sister just choosing to cover herself, protect herself, is making some kind of a political statement. It's just absurd. Muslim countries, I want to emphasize, are in fact using the hijab as a tool of oppression and a social suppression and denial of women. That's Muslim countries. Those are not Islamic countries. The Prophet ﷺ didn't use corporal enforcement. That means forcing women to wear the hijab in the Muslim countries. This wasn't in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It wasn't in the time of the Khulafa al-Rashidin. Therefore, we can say that Muslims around the world who are forcing their daughters or their mothers or their wives to wear the hijab either to school or anywhere else, they are violating the principle of Islam.
As a matter of fact, if your wife or your daughter or your sister tomorrow just woke up and changed her mind, and instead of putting on hijab, she just put on a bikini and walked out the door, well, you would be surprised, you would be shocked, but there's nothing you can do. You can talk to her, but you can't even put your hands on her to stop her from going outside the door, because then, therefore, you violating another rule. So Muslims need to understand where they are.
They see me as a person interfering. They think that I should be like a firebrand speaker. But I'm a firebrand speaker talking to them about reforming their behavior. The older people don't like it. The younger people tolerate it.
Certainly we can say this, that the treatment of animals in this country is more sophisticated than the treatment of human beings in the Muslim world. Now that's a fact. Now I didn't read that in the book. You know, I've been all over the Muslim world, and I can say that the animal rights in this country is more guaranteed and more sophisticated than the human rights in the Muslim world. So do we have something to be grateful for? Of course we do. I think I got the best part of the pie. But then I got to give something back. I don't want to leave this world and leave my children, my grandchildren, thinking to themselves that we're not Americans. I mean, am I American? You know, sometimes I'm in a mosque and I ask the Muslims, are you guys Dutch? And people look around at each other and they're actually sitting trying to figure out whether they should say they're Dutch or not. So what kind of mentality is that? Muslims have to own up to what's called civic, social, citizenship responsibility. And that's not just taking. It's taking and giving.
Maybe this is why people are afraid. You see, as long as Islam could be attached to some kind of ethnic phenomena, you know, in America, African Americans, then white people could still feel a bit safe because it's contained, you see. As long as Islam was an ethnic phenomena in Europe, whether the Moroccans or the Algerians or the Turkish or whatever, as long as it could be like that, it could still be contained. But now it has broke that mold. It has produced another culture that blends with the existing culture. You see the European youth accepting Islam, and their expression of Islam will have some taints of the ethnic group, but they will develop their own identity after a certain amount of time.
Okay, so we can book an appointment with Sheikh Haitham, and the earliest one is in October, 6th of October at 4:30. 5 minutes booked. Okay.
There are marriages which are not registered in this country. They are done in the mosque, for example, or in some houses. Because they are not registered in a civil registry, this is why the couple, if they want to divorce, they don't have access to the civil divorce at all. So for them, this is the only way. They come here, we have to listen to both parties, and this is what we do.
And she wants to apply from Holland. She's in Holland. Okay, and does she knows for if the husband doesn't agree, she will have to come for the meeting.
Sharia, as we see it, is a way towards conforming to what God has ordered. It will regulate. It will help to regulate the lives of Muslims in their private affairs, And that's the most that can be done from a Sharia point of view. You know, it's called family law, personal law. It's been applied in many Western countries before when it comes to Muslims. As a matter of fact, the Muslims are not the first ones to do that. The Jewish people have been doing that for the last 50 or 60 years. In America and in Europe, they have their own Talmud courts, okay, so that if there's divorces or there's issues or problems, it would be held within that Talmud type of a setting. So there's nothing to fear. And there is portions of Sharia which is very much consistent with the moral fabric of the Western world. And so, for instance, what is Sharia going to do? Are we going to stone people? No. Are we going to whip people? No. Are we going to cut off hands? Of course not.
In Islam, there is a balance which has been created in the matrimonial life. When a divorce happens, the custody of the children normally goes to the woman. So when a woman comes asking for divorce, suppose there are a child or two children in that marriage, she is not going to lose anything because she knows that the custody of the children is given to her. She is not going to lose anything. The man has lost his children. He got only an access to see them from time to time. So he has to suffer. So we can say that in Islam a balance has been created, that the right of divorce primarily is given to the man, because the man has to think twice before he divorces his wife, that if I divorce my wife, my children will go away from me and they would be taken by my wife. So he would be very reluctant to give divorce because he knows what he is going to suffer. I have my civil divorce. You got your civil divorce?
Yeah, I got it like...
Which is on 20th of January.
Yeah.
Hmm?
After 2 years I got that.
Did you provide us with the...
Yeah, I did get it when I came in with the application form.
Mm-hmm. It is very explicitly recorded in our forms that this couple should apply for a civil divorce because we don't want the people hanging.
I don't understand 100% Urdu. I speak
He is saying that you did not give him any chance to even understand him and to live with him. You just want a divorce.
I did try, honestly. I did.
How she did try? She tried just, she called many boys in front of me and she just tried to jealous me and she did everything which a good husband don't like.
That was an arranged marriage?
Yeah.
Yes, arranged marriage, but I went to her house.
I agreed.
She married with her wish.
Yeah, that's true. I did marry my wish. I didn't get forced. I didn't get nothing. I tried. I went. I got married. I tried. But
what time you used to come at night?
It's about 9, 10ish because I used to do home care.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used to...
Before this council was established, it was quite difficult for women to get an Islamic divorce because normally they used to go to a center, Islamic center, and there is an individual person, imam, who has to decide. But there was no collective decision. Now, because of this council and other councils, there is a collective decision taken by a panel of the scholars, which is more authoritative and more binding. And this is something which has given a great relief to the woman. This is why you see the number of those people who come to us is very great, and 90% of them are women.
Partijleider Geert Wilders van de Partij voor de Vrijheid wil de Koran verbieden. Volgens Wilders is de Koran een fascistisch boek dat oproept tot geweld. Hij noemt het heilige boek van moslims het islamitische Mein Kampf. Het gebruik van de Koran in huiselijke kring en in de moskee moet worden bestraft, zegt Wilders in de Volkskrant.
Dear brothers and sisters, neighbors, colleagues, guests, Secret Service,
And as for that unfortunate person who made that film called whatever he called it, shame on him that he would insult 1/5 of the world's population, Muslims. Shame on him that he would also insult another 1/5 of the world's population who are Christians. No Christian would ever say something like that about the Quran. And no Muslim would ever say that about the Bible. And no sensible person would say that about a scripture unless he has his own agenda. Shame on him. And even though it took a little bit of time for the judicial agency here to investigate it and determine it, we thank God that they have taken the responsibility to prosecute him. And not that I want to see him prosecuted, but I think at least he deserves a judicial slap on the wrist.
Geert Wilders moet eens ouderwets met een riem worden gegezeld. Daarvoor pleit de internationaal omstreden Amerikaanse moslimpredikant Khalid Yasin. Hij haalde gisteren in een speech op de Islamitische Universiteit in Rotterdam fel uit naar de PVV-leider. Yasin zei Wilders stelselmatige beledigingen aan het adres van de islamitische wereld het liefst op een traditionele manier te willen afstraffen met een geesteling.
They've coined a law in America. It's called the theater law. Okay, so you have freedom of expression. You go inside of a crowded theater and you shout fire, fire, fire. And it causes people to riot and stampede and some people die, right? So they say that's freedom of expression, but you become responsible for what you just said that caused the death or the injury of other people. Well, so how far do we go with freedom of expression? If it's to that's a law in America now. It's called a theater law. So you just cannot go into a theater and shout fire, fire as a joke. No, and you can't just walk up and down the society inciting people. You know, and Mr. Wilders, this is what he's doing. He's playing the incitement card. Because if he didn't play this incitement card, who would be following Mr. Wilders? And the thing is Mr. Wilders an Orientalist? No. Does he have some special discipline study in Islam? No. Does he know something about the Quran where he studied the Arabic language? No. So what's his authority? He's just another reactionary. I mean, Mr. Wilders he should just put KKK on his shirt, okay, or MMM for that matter on his shirt and walk up and down and say, I just hate all these dogs and pigs, Muslims or whatever the case might be. But he's a public figure. That's what makes it bad.
Now, being young and being Muslim in a world where it seems that Islam and Muslims are being demonized, it's not easy. It seems like everywhere we turn, on the news, in the movies, and every form of media, Muslims are being called terrorists, radicals, extremists, insurgents, fundamentalists, fanatics, and fascists. They make these judgments because of your religion. They make these judgments because of your ethnicity. And they make those judgments based upon your color. And you will find out that before 1948, none of these words was ever used regarding Muslims. So what happened in 1948 that these words started to being used for Muslims? Well, it was the criminal occupation of Palestine. And because the Palestinians had enough heart to resist that criminal occupation, they were called terrorists and insurgents. And until today, the criminal state of Israel is not considered to be a terrorist state, although they are still committing terror after 50 years.
I think that the people who are bombing, blowing themselves up, doing these acts of sporadic acts of terror or whatever, they still are very minute, small number. Small number. I call it retail terror. Retail terror, okay? But the West is able to justify wholesale terror on the basis of its own political interests. So I think that's kind of like unfair, and I think that's kind of like unbalanced.
If we want to talk about terror, global terror, let's talk about the wholesale and the retail. And let's find preventive ways, okay? Let's find preventive ways. If, just as I take a position to de-radicalize young people, then I think Christians and Europeans should do their part to de-radicalize, okay, their countries and their governments. Because we're on the end of their terror.
I understand how it feels living with an evil stigma that leads to public profiling, prejudice, and causing people in the society to make unfair judgments about you. I understand that because I grew up in a post-slavery America. Every day of my life, I was pushed and provoked to do something extreme, something radical, or something that could be called a justifiable reaction.
The first Muslims that were called terrorists, fanatics, extremists, were the Palestinians. That was in 1948. So all the way up until now, so the past 60 years, the words terrorism, fanaticism, insurgency, fundamentalism, extremism, and now they're using the word terrorism and fascism is almost inevitably, directly affected in news with Muslims and Islam. That's not an accident. Now, there are people who are political Zionists, although they're not Jewish at all. And this idea of political Zionism expanding in Europe, fanning, you understand me, and taking and exploiting, you understand me, the issues between Muslims and non-Muslims, and, you know, this whole, even Mr. Wilders, if I didn't know better, I would think that he's very much, I think that he has taken and embraced the idea of modern Zionism. And he's using the platform of modern Zionism to espouse the same concepts about Muslims in the world and the Quran that the Jews cannot afford to say in Israel. You see, the Zionists in Israel are not saying what Geert Wilders says, because this would hurt their chances, okay, at the political table. If they was to demonize Islam and demonize Muslims all over the world, they would antagonize a greater, you know, number than they really want to. But Mr. Wilders can do them a favor and do what? He can go outside of Israel with those same feelings, and then he can characterize, okay, the way that the Zionists characterize the Palestinians to legitimize their power. Mr. Wilders can characterize Islam in the same way, and this is what's taking place. So if I was a person living in the Netherlands today, I would be very afraid that some people like Mr. Wilders fanning the kinds of hate and spewing the kinds of things that he's saying, that he came into some kind of influence where he could marshal together the kind of support that he's saying that he would like to do and do some of the things that he would like to do. I think that what he would wind up doing, he would create an atmosphere for war, for disintegration, for the clashing between ethnic groups, something that that Europe, for the most part, and America, for the most part, that's in our history. It's a part of the history, and we have come through it, come a long way. I don't know if anybody has done it, but me, you know, I'm not really an intellectual, but I've read and listened to his stuff. I would really like to talk to Mr. Wilders about what he's talking about dominant culture. I mean, what planet is he on? Dominant culture? What dominant culture is he talking about? I mean, Europe has moved so much and changed, the boundaries have changed so much, and ethnicities and culture and politics have fused so much. What is he talking about, dominant culture? Does he mean Slavic? Does he mean Germanic? What culture is he talking about? I mean, is his wife from that culture? Is he really himself from that culture? Once you go for that, if you're the dominant culture, what does the dominant mean? Does it mean white? Does it mean Aryan? Does it mean Germanic? What does it really mean?
Degenen die voor deze resolutie zijn, steken die de gele briefjes omhoog. Dat wil zeggen dat u dan stemt voor kabinetsdeelname.
Well, you know, Islam in Europe is like a new pair of shoes. If you wear them long enough, they'll fit.
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين وجعلنا سواء عليهم أنذرتهم. That is it, gentlemen.